Hey everybody, I thought I'd make a quick video to tell you about this car and why I love it so much. Now I understand many of you may be thinking I'm joking as you see the condition of it, and I don't even blame you. So why would this car be so important to me? When I was about 10 years old, my brother was about 15, and he was beginning to figure out what he wanted for his first car. It may have had something to do with my mom telling us about Carmen Ghia she had when she was younger, but he seemed to settle quickly on the idea. He also began taking a lot of Hot VWs and VW Trends magazines, and I began learning to appreciate the car too. Bugs were very common in Phoenix, and most people knew about buses too. Ghias were less common, but I quickly identified the Type 3 Squareback as a favorite. Later I would learn that it was designed to be a slightly larger vehicle with more cargo space and a larger displacement engine. At first, I just knew that I thought it was something really special. After a few months though, there was a notchback featured in one of the magazines. Larger, glossy color pictures of all the beautiful details showing off all the unique features of the notchback. This was when I went from a guy who really liked cars to a full-on enthusiast. For years I continued to take those magazines, and I always knew I would live a life in and amongst classic Volkswagens. When I was 15 though, my dad had a friend who was into Mustangs, and we got turned on to a 1969 fastback GTA with a pretty unique story from the original owner, who happened to work at the factory where the car was produced. So my hands-on love affair with Volkswagens would have to wait. A few years later I needed some help, and my parents were there to get me back on track with a new-to-me car. We grabbed an auto trader, because that's what you did in those days, and got a list of Type 3s together to go see. For those of you who don't know, the Notchback was never sold by Volkswagen in the US, so each one is a private import. This is one reason they are so uncommon, and more valuable than the Squareback and Fastbacks. However, as luck would have it, one of the cars in the auto trader was a Notchback. We arranged to see several cars that day, but had to make a decision right away, and the Notchback owner was not returning our call. We finally decided on a 72 Squareback, which we believed the owner about the mechanical work done, and felt we had obtained a reliable vehicle. However, as I drove my new car away, unbeknownst to me, my parents were getting the return call from the Notchback owner. They went to this car, fully prepared to buy it for me, then deal with having to sell the car I had just driven away in. But when they arrived, another rather aggressive shopper showed up. And while my parents offered more than the asking price for the car, this only angered the other guy even more, and they just had to let it go. If I had ever wondered how much my parents cared about me, this made it much easier to accept it. The 72 wasn't the year nor the color I wanted, but it was a fairly reliable car which I enjoyed driving very much. I also learned a fair bit about the engines, and how lowering the front end 3 splines is just entirely too much without certain other modifications. I even wound up rebuilding the motor in the form of a 1776, with a cam which was probably entirely too hot for normal driving. Later, some idiot would somehow manage to wait for precisely the wrong time when my yellow beacon of a car was in just the right spot for him to pull out from the opposite side of the road across several lanes and directly into the side of my car. At this point, it was time to get a family car and be responsible, so that's what I did. It wasn't for a few more years that I had another opportunity to get a new car, and while the Bug never did much for me, I found a very pretty 66 Bug, which I enjoyed driving for quite a while, before selling it for something more reliable. Fast forward 20 plus years, and my dreams of being heavily involved with Volkswagens had become rather stale. I had to make a choice to give everything I could for the sake of my kids, and it was an easy decision to make. Over the years, I've followed the comings and goings of various VWs for sale on the Samba. In the past few years, though, it had become apparent that most remaining notchbacks have either already been restored to the tune of $30,000 to $40,000, or were in extremely rough shape. As much as I would love to perform a body-off restoration of one, I knew I would never be able to afford such a project, so I found the next best thing. I found a daily driver in mechanically pretty sound shape, which needs basically everything above the pan to be gone through thoroughly. But, as I set out to do all of the free and nearly free things one can do to stop the decay, I could also be driving the car regularly. So, my good friend and I set out on a journey to pick up this car and drive it 2,000 miles home in it. But that's another story for another video. Now I'm curious, what do you guys think? What would you do first? Second? Please refrain from suggesting that I scrap it or something. Now, truth be told, I've already started doing some things to the car, but I'm still very interested to hear what other people think should be done and what thoughts you guys have about the car. So, put them in the comments below. And thanks for watching my little video.